Yo everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are having an absolutely fantastic kick butt day today so far. So guys, today's video we're going to be going over my balance change update wish list. We're going to be discussing what brawlers I think desperately need a buff in this meta, as well as which ones need a nerf. And I think some of us definitely have an idea of which brawlers are that. But guys, it should be a really cool video. Hopefully some of these brawlers get a change, as well as if I don't cover a brawler that you think needs a change, make sure to leave that in the comments down below. I would love that. Alrighty guys, so we're going to be covering the nerfs first. Which brawlers I think need a nerf in the meta. Some of these are really obvious, as well as some of them I think might be a little bit more controversial, but I feel like would be awesome just to kind of mix up the meta, make it a little bit different. So the very first one, of course, Leon. Leon desperately needs a nerf. I feel like he's the problem child of the meta. I feel like a lot of you guys can agree with me on that, where you can bring Leon basically into every single game mode and he's dominant, just because he's overall a great brawler. I think an appropriate nerf to Leon would be something to his damage. I think he does a little bit too much damage at close range, and it's very easy for him to get at close range because he has that mobility as well as his super to be able to get in close. Even if they can see you at a short distance when you are invisible, with that slight nerf that he got to his star power a few weeks ago, I feel like it's just not enough. You can still get close enough to deal massive amounts of damage to be able to take out your opponents. For a perfect example, giving credence as to why he's a little bit overpowered right now, he can rip through even the tankier units like El Primo and Bull, which is an asset to them that's very important to them so that they can stay alive. They are tank brawlers. That's something to their character that's super important, and if a brawler can kind of cut through that just by getting in close, I feel like that's a little bit overpowered, and he's not even considered like a short range brawler, a brawler that's supposed to deal a bunch of damage at close range. He's meant to be more of a mid-range brawler, a brawler that can control his lane a little bit better, almost similar to like Anita, but he definitely rewrites that role, being like an incredible mid-range brawler, as well as even better of a short range brawler. So once again, I think an appropriate nerf would be a damage reduction. He doesn't necessarily need another nerf to his super or anything like that. I think that's fine. You just gotta nerf what is actually overpowered about him, and that is his massive amount of damage at a closer range. So the next nerf that I want to touch on is your girl Pam. Though it feels freaking amazing to see Pam very vibrant in the meta that we have right now, she's very good on multiple different game modes, which I never would have thought would happen. If you asked me that a few months ago, I would have told you you're freaking crazy that Pam's playing on Heist. That's absolutely insane. I like that part of the meta, but I also like change. I would like to see a new dominant mid brawler or gem carrier in gem grab. I feel like that'd be really cool. I feel like one brawler that we haven't seen very well, and another brawler that you might be seeing coming up in discussion later on in the video, is Poco. I feel like we haven't seen a Poco being the dominant gem carrier in a very long time, or a Jessie being the dominant gem carrier in a very long time. I feel like there's this weird thing in the meta where if we have one super dominant brawler, it gets to be somewhat old, where you constantly are seeing that Pam being the gem carrier. It's no problem to me right now, just because it's nice to see her in the meta, but I would like to see something change with her so we can see a little bit more of a switch up. I feel like it'd be cool to see Jessie being the dominant brawler in the meta. We're seeing her being played on Heist, and we already see her being played on Brawl Ball, but another solid option for Brawl Ball. I think that'd be really cool. So I think an appropriate nerf to Pam would be a health reduction. She just got a health increase, and it was very minuscule, and that's what shot her up in the meta. The littlest of changes can change a brawler for the benefit, or nerf them a little bit too much. She only got 400 health in the last balance change update, but that skyrocketed her to the top of the tier list of the brawlers that are playing in the game right now. So maybe another 400 health reduction or a range reduction. I feel like Pam kind of goes against the grain with the brawlers that we see in the meta, where she's kind of classified a tank, but she also has incredible range. Another brawler that kind of fits that role is Bo as well. He doesn't have as much health as Pam, but he's still kind of that tankier unit, plus he has really good range. But Pam kind of way goes above that, just because she has really high health, as well as she does that annoying tick damage at a very long distance, and I feel like that can be really overpowered on multiple different game modes. So maybe a range reduction. The next brawler I want to see get a nerf in the meta is Spike. I feel like Spike has been dominant in the meta for a very long time, and that also gives credence as to how good his character actually is. He's a very reliable brawler. I think it's been like 4 balance changes now. He's been in the top 5 best brawlers in the game so far. There once was a time where Spike wasn't that crazy good, more towards the middle of the pack, and we saw Crow being top 3 best legendary, something like that. But I feel like Spike has had his time to shine. I would love to see someone else else take its place as somewhat of a support brawler in gem grab or fitting multiple roles in multiple different game modes, I would love to see a different brawler kind of fit that role. Now, kind of like I said about Spike previously, it's very hard to nerf him just because his character and his mechanics overall are very, very good in the game. He's got a slow, he does really, really good bursty damage at a long distance. The only thing really holding him back is his health, and it doesn't hold him back that much because he has so many different things that are benefiting him, outweighing that health disadvantage that he has. I think the absolute best nerf to Spike that wouldn't hinder his character too much, that wouldn't send him down to the bottom of the tier list, would be a damage reduction. A very, very simple damage reduction so he doesn't charge up his super as fast, as well as he doesn't do that massive amount of pressure that he can do right now. I feel like that's the best nerf for him. Okay, so the next nerf is going to be a surprise to you guys, but I feel very, very adamantly towards that, and that is a nerf to Bo. Are you kidding me? Bo, the weakest brawler in the game? Why would you nerf Bo, Ray? You're freaking crazy. I would love a nerf to his star power. I feel like Bo is in a very, very weird place, and I've touched on this in previous videos, but Bo is in a very precarious situation in the meta, where if you don't have a star power, he's extremely, extremely underwhelming. Probably the bottom of the tier list. I would say bottom 2, something like that. But if you have a star power, he skyrockets to probably like top 10, top 5 in the game. So he is a very, very difficult brawler to balance. If you buff him, then players with his star power, that Bo is going to be insane. So for example, if you were to buff Bo, which I do believe he needs it without his star power, that Bo would be pretty dang good in the meta, maybe like in the middle of the pack, if he didn't have a star power. However, if that Bo were also to receive the buff, but he had the star power as well, the Bo would be absolutely insane. I think he'd probably be somewhat close to the best brawler in the meta. If you buff Bo without the star power, in turn you're buffing Bo with the star power, and that's where the problem arises when we're trying to balance Bo in the meta right now. I feel like an appropriate change to Bo's star power would be either a range decrease to the vision that he can see in the bushes, so it's not a crazy big advantage. Another one could be that he doesn't get it for his entire team. That's not a crazy big nerf, but it might not help their team as much, because I feel like it's a little bit overpowered, being that your whole entire team can have an advantage against the entire enemy team as well, just from one star power. Or another thing that I've previously said in the past is a complete change to his star power, something different, maybe like something a little bit more simple, like his arrows are on fire or something like that, that does a little bit more wider of a, like an area damage. I don't know, something like that, just something completely different that would be his star power. Now the final nerf that I want to go over in today's video may be kind of weird to you guys, but it's from a veteran player in the Brawl Stars community, seeing this brawler being at the top of the leaderboards for a very, very long time, and that is Tara. I feel like Tara is kind of that brawler that always keeps coming back to the top of the tier list. I feel like she's always like top 5, no matter what. Since her creation, since she's been brought into this game, she's always been an incredibly good brawler and always circles back to her super. It doesn't matter how much you nerf this brawler, if she has the super that she has, she's going to be really, really good in the meta. So I'd like to see not a change to her super. I love her super. It's probably my favorite super in the entire game, but I just want to see something tweaked with her so she's not so up there all the time, just so we see something changing in the meta. We always see like a Tara in Brawl Ball, or we always see a Tara in Gem Grab. I would love to see maybe a different brawler fit the same role that Tara is doing, just so we can see some different gameplay in the meta. I don't have anything against Tara, and I think she's been pretty balanced, not super overwhelming in the meta, but I just want to see a shift, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily think that she's incredibly, incredibly broken in the meta right now. I just want to see some change. Okay, so moving on to the buffs. Which brawlers do I think desperately need a buff? And I'm going to kick this one off with the one that I really want the most, and that is to Crow. Guys, I feel like Crow has been at the bottom of the barrel for the legendary brawlers for a very long time. Even with the introduction to Leon, I feel like it kind of hurts him even more, just because the two legendary brawlers are at the peak. They're the best brawlers in the entire game, but then you have poor old Crow sitting here at like 10th or 11th in the game, just because he's not super overwhelming. His stats aren't super good. He can do some bursty damage, but he also relies on his super to get away when he's doing that bursty damage. And one problem that we have with Crow right now is that he doesn't recharge his super all that much. There once was a time where Crow was incredibly, incredibly dominant in the meta, top 3 at all times. Doesn't matter what you did to him, he was always there because he was insanely good. He played on multiple different game modes because his mechanics were very, very good for your team in those game modes. But the thing about Crow that was changed that made him a little bit underwhelming was his super regeneration rate. They nerfed that, so he didn't get his super as much during his games, and that's why he's a little bit underwhelming, because he relies relies on that super a lot. He's an assassination brawler, which means he relies on using that assassination element, that super, to jump in, take out a really high targeted brawler or an objective during the game that you're playing in. Say a Poco has 7 gems in gem grab, that would be a prime target for Crow to jump in on that Poco to take him out and collect the gems. Even if he dies in the process, he's able to disrupt their flow, being able to maybe lose control on the map for the enemy team. So right now we only get about 2 supers with Crow during the game, and I feel like it'd be great if we got 3 or maybe 4 during the game so we can mess around with it a little bit, so we can get in there, be a little bit scrappy, deal a bunch of damage, and then jump away or use his super to assassinate a little bit more. I don't think his mechanics are super overwhelming right now, and I don't think even if you buffed his super regeneration, he'd be that insanely of a dominant brawler right now, especially if you're a little bit more careful with it. 3 supers a game, that's all I'm asking for. I would love that. So the next buff that I would like to see is to my good friend Mortis. Now I feel like Mortis is a very, very tricky brawler to nerf or buff, and we've seen this in the past where Mortis has been incredibly overpowered to the point of like Leon tier right now, where it's just like you have Mortis in all of your games and he's just so incredibly broken, to down at the bottom of the barrel because they tweak something a little bit too much. And I feel like Mortis has these elements to his character that are really, really unique, but if they're tweaked in the wrong way can be insanely broken. Another thing that makes Mortis insanely hard to buff or nerf is that he's very, very high skill cap brawler. That means that pro players or certain players that maybe main Mortis and really know how to play with him, they're going to be really good with Mortis, being like hyper aggressive aggro in gem grab or a ball carrier in brawl ball. They're going to be insanely good with Mortis, but if someone just picks up Mortis, he's not going to be all that good. He's not going to stand out to them to being a really, really good brawler. I feel like if you just receive Mortis, the only game mode that is like appropriate or something that I feel like would stand a chance to get the most trophies possible would be Showdown, just like running away in Showdown. But it takes a certain skill to be able to get down Mortis, so I'd love to see maybe a slight buff to Mortis, but I really, really stress that you have to be careful with the buffs being received to Mortis. But it's kind of one of those things that you see it only at the pro level, where they're super, super good with Mortis. So in turn, I'd love to see a buff so that some of the beginner players in this game would enjoy playing with Mortis and kind of get him down and enjoy his mechanics. But the thing is, if he does receive a buff, the pro players are just going to be insane with Mortis, and we're going to be seeing him terrorizing the top of the leaderboards. Okay, so the next brawler that I think needs a buff is Bo. So Bo's making both sides of this list, and you won't see that coming probably in another balance change in a very long time, or a balance change prediction coming from me, a brawler making both ends of the spectrum. It's very, very weird. But like I preluded to or talked about earlier in the video, I feel like he needs a buff to his overall stats and a nerf to his star power, just because right now without his star power he's incredibly weak, and we already talked about that. But he's so freaking weak in the meta. The game modes that he really thrives in, that he stands a chance in, is like gem grab and bounty, but he's like bottom of the tier list for those game modes, or selections that you can bring into that game mode. Bo is a really good gem carrier in the right hands, but he's probably like the 5th best gem carrier in the game. And then on bounty, he's pretty dang good. He's got that long range, he's got a lot of health, so he can tank some shots, but there are other brawlers that you would want to bring in instead of Bo, like a Piper or Brock or things along those lines. So I feel like Bo is in a very, very weird situation right now, and I think he just needs a little bit of tweaking. But I would love a buff to his overall character, maybe like a health increase or a damage increase. That'd be really, really cool. But a nerf to his star power, please. That would be awesome. Okay, so the next brawler that I would love to see a buff is my man Poco. And again, this is another slight, kind of like a wild card. I would love to see a buff on Poco just to switch up the meta. Once again, kind of like with Tara, I love to see a constant change in the best gem carrier in the game, which is a very awesome thing to follow if you're keeping up with the meta. I feel like Pam is the best right now. Last balance change, Penny was insanely good. There hasn't been a time recently that Jessie and Poco have been insanely good. I feel like Poco was a little bit more recent than Jessie, but I would love to see Poco being the prime, the king, the best gem carrier you can bring into gem grab, just because he's incredibly fun. I love his mechanics, and I don't necessarily want to see, I know there's a lot of Jessie lovers out there. I love Jessie as well, but I feel like sometimes playing up against a dominant Jessie, like a really, really good Jessie as a gem carrier, which we will be seeing if she gets a buff, I feel like it's a little bit annoying playing against that turret. It's not as fun playing up against a Poco. I feel like there's nothing better than a 1v1 in the middle with a Poco, 2 gem carriers duking it out. I love that. So the most appropriate buff that I would love to see for Poco would be a health increase. I don't think we've seen a health buff to Poco in a very long time, and as you guys can see, a slight health increase can do wonders. You might not not think it does, but just take a look at Pam. Pam is the prime example of that. She just got 400 health added to her character, and now she's the best in the game, or one of the best in the game. I'd say top 3. So that's crazy, and I would love to see something like that done to Poco. So he's a little bit more scrappy in game. He can tank some more shots. He can stick in the fight for a little bit longer as the gem carrier. I don't necessarily think he needs like a damage increase or anything like that. I think the rate in which he charges up his super is pretty dang good, and if you were to give him more attack power, he would be charging up his super a little bit faster, as well as just dealing more damage. So I think that is good about him. I would just like to see a little bit more health. And the final brawler I would love to see get a buff in this next balance change update is one of my favorite brawlers in this entire game. That is Piper, guys. Piper is so much fun to play with, but you don't necessarily get to play her too often because she's very, very game mode specific. The only game modes that I would recommend anyone play Piper on are bounty maps, and I would also stress that they play on bounty maps that are a little bit more wide open. Granted, you can technically play Piper on every single one of the bounty maps, and she's going to be pretty dang good, but I think she thrives on those longer range bounty maps. And the only really other role that she fits in the game in the other game modes is on gem grab as a gem carrier on really, really specific maps. You don't want to bring Piper into gem grab as the gem carrier on every single one of the maps. You're just going to get wrecked by like a Pam or something like that. And right now, even with Pam being the gem carrier, we're not seeing Piper being that mid on those specific maps that she's pretty dang good at. So the only game mode she plays in is bounty, and I would love to see a switch to that. Wouldn't it be cool seeing Piper in heist, or wouldn't it be cool to see Piper in brawl ball, something like that? I feel like it'd be a nice switch to the meta, and I feel like it'd be really, really cool to see counters playing against Piper. If she was dominant in the meta, we might be seeing like Brock's being played in game modes that he necessarily doesn't go into, or hard counters to Piper in game modes that we don't necessarily see her in. So I really, really like that change. I would love to see a buff to Piper because I feel like she's probably bottom tier. She's like bottom 3 right now in the meta, just because she's not very viable on multiple different game modes. So guys, like I said before in the beginning of the video, make sure to leave in the comments down below which brawlers you think need changes in the meta, which ones you think need buffs, which ones you think needs nerfs. This is my personal opinion, but I feel like I've been playing this game for a long enough time to understand which are the problem childs in the meta. I have accounts that I play on that are a little bit lower in trophies, so I understand which brawlers are good at that trophy range, as well as I have an account that's a little bit higher in trophies that I get to play with the pro players with pretty regularly, so I know which brawlers are good at that level as well. And I think this would be great for the meta, some of these changes. Of course, some of those wild card picks are a little bit more personal preference, but the majority of the brawlers making this list I think would be great for the meta moving forward. So guys, hopefully you all enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to slap a like button on it. I'd really, really appreciate that. Also consider hitting that subscribe button down below and becoming a part of the Raid fam. I'd appreciate that. So guys, make sure to have a crazy good day today, and with that being said, make sure to keep having fun with Brawl Stars, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.